So Pierre Hedji, a really good dear friend of mine. I've known Pierre for probably, I would say, over 2 decades, definitely. I'm older than Pierre, but yeah, for about, over 2 decades. Great guy, affectionately referred to as Coach Pierre by thousands of young people, some young adults by now. Um, so Pierre Hedgie, thank you so much, man. Tell me about your story, like your American journey, having immigrant parents, your story, where you came from, when you got here, and kind of what shaped you early on in your American experience.
Well, thanks for having me. There's so much, but I wanted try like compact it as much as possible.
Yeah.
First and foremost, it's like the American dream. As a child, being from Republic of Benin, right, which is where
Mm-hmm.
I was. I'm a citizen of, but I was born in Niger, right? So not a lot of people know that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then I moved to Benin when I was three. But
Mm-hmm.
because all of those times, my mother was a diplomat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so she was moved from Niger to Benin, and then spent some time in Benin up to the point that I was 9, 10 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I was 10 or 11 years old, something like that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so she was like, okay, another opportunity occurred, right?
Yeah.
And so she was basically being a secretary to the ambassador that was coming to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And so so as a child, when you be hear about it in the United States or whatever, it's like, all of these things, like it's glamour, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
glamour. And and your mother of all people. And if knowing my mother's background and knowing that she's going to the United States, like there could not be a better time and a better chance
Yeah.
that she will ever, right, receive to move
Yeah.
to the United States, right? And
Right.
and so rightfully so, you're you're overly excited, right? And
Yeah.
the notion that you two will get a chance to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And going to this space that's so-called the American, everybody calls the American dream, right?
Right. Right.
The place to be. You have to be there, right?
Yeah.
So you've been told. Even
Yeah.
for people that have never been there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's not the people that have been there are the ones
Yeah.
telling you. It's
Yeah.
people that have never been there. Like
Yeah.
if you ever get a chance, you should just go,
Yeah.
right?
It's the marketing campaign.
Exactly. And so so our mother got a chance, to come to the United States, and so our mother has always been someone that has never hid anything from us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And didn't matter how young we were.
Mm-hmm.
Her thing was always like, she sits you down, everybody
Mm-hmm.
down, said, here's the situation, this is
Mm-hmm.
what's happening, this is
Yeah.
what we, okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any opinion?
Yeah.
Um, because she's a single mother, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember she would always tell me, and back then I was like, what are you talking about? She always tell me I don't have a daughter. So you
Yeah.
guys are my daughter and you guys are
Yeah.
my, right?
Yeah.
And so, with the exception of things a girl would do, but cleaning, cooking, whatever, doing dishes,
Yeah.
washing your clothes, all right. The things
Yeah.
that as an African,
Yeah.
right, it's looked at, you will refer to those chores as a woman's chore or a girl's chore or whatever, right?
Right. 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 Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, what are you talking about? And so
Yeah.
we'll have these conversations, and so she's like, okay, so I'm going to the United States. And so we're like, okay, well, what does that mean? And then, she was like, well, it means that you have to spend a year without me,
Mm-hmm.
which she was moving to the US for a year, and
Mm-hmm.
we're going to stay with other people,
Yeah.
right? So in this case, it was like our uncles and our aunts, right?
Yeah.
Um, but we were all split up
Yeah.
a year. So that
Yeah.
means I didn't get to see any of my brothers. They didn't get to see me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're also in different parts of the country, right?
Yeah.
Where in what, 95, 96,
Yeah.
I mean, transportation is not as easy as it used to be. And
Right, right.
as an 11-year-old, I listen
Yeah.
like this. It's like, well, you have to know where you're going to be able to
Right.
go see to be able to go see your sibling,
Right,
right?
right.
And it wasn't one of those things where your aunts or your uncles had wanted to be like, oh, let me just put you in a cab or whatever, and you can
Right,
go
right, right.
to Google, or you can go,
Right.
these other places in different parts of the country.
Yeah.
And so like me and my brothers were, essentially separated for a year, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I mean that one will come into full circle as we continue this discussion and
Yeah.
stuff. And so she, so she went away
Mm-hmm.
for a year and then essentially basically called my uncle and stuff, and we packed our things,
Yeah.
and off we were going to the United States.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I remember like it was yesterday, the first time I stepped out of the plane, it was cold like hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, no, no, no.
Which airport did
I
you
think
land in?
I want to say we were at JFK.
Okay. Yeah.
I was like, no, 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 no. What? This is too cold.
Yeah.
This is like it's way too cold.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating because like in JFK, New York, big
Yeah.
buildings everywhere. You're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
holy cow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I guess
I'm in America. I'm
I'm
here.
in America, right?
Yeah.
This is different, right?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you downtown in Benin,
Yeah.
the big buildings that you see are not half the size of
Yeah.
what you would see in New York,
Right. Right.
right?
Right. Right. Right.
So like, and driving to DC and all those things. Now coming here, like we learned English for like 2 weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
language is 2 weeks. I mean, it's
Yeah.
zero at that,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Being in the French system for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so like we stayed in DC because
Mm-hmm.
that's where the embassy was, and
Yep.
everything.
Yep.
We lived in Mount Pleasant. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
our middle school, which is Lincoln, was like right
Mm-hmm.
there. So, we would walk, you
Yeah.
know. We've always been used to walking.
Yeah.
Since 5, we
Yeah.
would walk to church, walk,
Mm-hmm.
school, walk
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
No supervision, right?
Yeah.
Like we didn't have anybody holding our hands and saying, "Oh, let me take you to." No, it was more
Yeah.
like, "Let me get you out of the building and we'll watch
Yeah.
you walk down the block." Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Figure it out.
Figure it out. I see
Yeah.
you. I see you when you get back.
Yeah.
You know? And so I remember going to middle school for the
Mm-hmm.
first day.
Yeah.
I had no idea what anybody was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Zero, right?
Yeah.
All I could do is speak French.
Yeah.
You know, so,
We.
so you
Yeah.
can imagine being at a school, and I mean, if you know Lincoln,
Yeah.
because it was a massive school,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right? And you're trying to figure out your classes, you're trying to
Yeah.
figure out what is this thing that you're reading on the paper, if you could read it, in fact,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? You didn't know what homeroom meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
didn't know. There's just so many things you did not
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of me, all I would say that, with for me and my brother, Charles, who's my our middle brother,
Mm-hmm.
um, we were blessed, right, and very thankful, even up until
Yeah.
today, that we were placed in a classroom
Mm-hmm.
with a teacher
Mm-hmm.
that spoke 9 languages.
Yeah.
Okay, Miss Fun,
Mm-hmm.
Vietnamese, live in Saigon and Ho Chi Minh City,
Yeah.
and so she started talking to us in French.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, she blew me away because I was just
Yeah.
like, thank God.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody that sees me,
Right.
right?
Right.
Somebody that can speak the same language.
You're like, I could go to the bathroom now. Thank you.
Yes.
I left. All right. Oh,
Like,
straight. Okay. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Uh, and so I was basically like, so I started speaking to Miss Fan.
Mm-hmm.
Spoke German, she spoke Spanish, I mean, the languages, That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when she was like telling me about how many languages she spoke, I'm like, wow, I thought I spoke a lot of languages. Well, you know
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
I've been humbled, right?
Yeah.
Mind you, like not speaking English is
Yeah.
humble, it's humble
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
But when you
Yeah.
meet somebody that's that has had life experience speaking this
Yeah.
language for
Yeah.
so long, it inspires you, right?
Yeah.
Inspires
Yeah.
so Miss Fun helped us navigate middle school. You know,
Hmm.
she was like, "Look, if you want to learn English, you're gonna have to push yourself." I said, "Okay, well, what do I need to do?" She just gave me a whole bunch of workbook. She
Yeah.
said, "I need you to watch shows,
Yeah.
in English," and gave me workbook. And me and my brother just went at it.
Yeah.
Went at it. Within
Yeah.
3 months,
Yeah.
actually have a conversation.
Yeah.
We were able to have conversation,
Yeah.
right? And I remember like, having to go to recess and like the first week not being able to understand what anybody was saying, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then I geared myself towards the Vietnamese community,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of them, as my peers, all of them came from Vietnam,
Yeah.
not too long before,
Yeah.
before me, right?
Yeah.
But some of them spoke French,
Yeah.
right? Some of them spoke French.
Yeah.
So just kind of getting myself intertwined with them. And
Right.
we will speak French and they were teaching me Vietnamese,
Hmm. Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, and I really, really embedded myself. That was my first time, that I embedded myself within an Asian culture, right?
Hmm.
And it was fascinating. It was really cool, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, fast forward, so that was middle school. Then high school. Uh,
Hmm.
went to Jackson Reed,
Hmm.
Jackson Reed. And Jackson Reed was again, I mean, talking about being lucky. It
Yeah.
was it was very diverse
Hmm.
back when, was that 98? Yeah,
Yeah.
98 when I went to school there.
Hmm.
Because everybody's child was a diplomat.
Yeah.
Other person's child was a diplomat, right? So
Right. Right.
you got world experiences. You got to,
Yeah.
meet different people, Hungary, Uruguay. I mean, you name it,
Yeah.
Um, it's just like the culture was different. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel very grateful because it gave me the chance to, talk to different people from
Hmm.
places, right? Whether you are Asian, Latino,
Hmm.
Caucasians. I mean, so like, it's Black Americans, African Americans. It's just like,
Yeah.
but you can see, so you would, if you go to the football
Hmm.
stadium,
Yeah.
what usually happens is this. You go through from the inside coming outside, and if you stay at the top, you see everything, right?
Yeah.
You had the Caucasian on the left side,
Yeah.
closer to the basketball
Yeah.
gym,
Yeah.
right? You had like the Latinos like down the steps, and stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
eating the food or whatever and stuff on the
Yeah.
other, on the others. And then on the field itself, you just had
Yeah.
like different groups of
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah.
And because I play soccer, all of the soccer players were all down there. All the
Yeah.
track, and I ran track as well. They're all
Right.
down there, right?
Yeah.
The wrestlers, you never find them because they hang out with different crew, right? So
They're just different.
they're just different.
Yeah.
But it's so that was really, really nice.
Hmm.
So I feel like going from landing middle school, high
Hmm.
school, shaped me in different ways.
Yeah.
I like as a as an immigrant parent, there are a lot of stuff that you don't know about the system.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and because you don't know, what you don't know, right?
Right.
Um, and so our mother's, entire goal was very simple. Focus on education, do well
Yeah.
in school. Okay. Sports, I don't care about sports. You need
Yeah.
to do well in school and
Yeah.
get grades.
Yeah.
That's the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
It's with sport is like doesn't I mean it doesn't even exist. It's not in the
Yeah.
book. When I
Yeah.
we're not sitting down and talking about me doing this, that, and the other. No,
Yeah.
right? And so very quickly, you know, for you, the child, you're like, okay, well, I need to do well in school. Got that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I need to make sure I stay out of trouble. Well, how
Mm-hmm.
do I do that?
Right.
Because as a young child, I used to get myself in trouble all the time, right?
Right.
Even back home, right?
Yeah.
And so, all right, I love playing soccer. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I've never had any coaching.
Yeah.
Nobody coached me, right?
Right.
Um, and so high school, I was like, okay, let me go, I'll go and play pickup soccer. This is like,
Yeah.
14, 13,
Yeah.
14, 15. And it wasn't until I was like, 14, almost 15, that that I came across
Mm-hmm.
Ozzy Orlando.
Yeah.
And I just saw him at Tacoma, and I went to one of his practices, and he took me into the team.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first experience playing
Yeah.
travel, right?
Yeah.
So it's my mother never like, oh, go do travel soccer, because
Yeah.
she knows about travel soccer, right?
Yeah.
Um, the only thing she wanted to know is like my grades from school.
Yeah.
I figure if
Yeah.
I'm doing well in school, well
Yeah.
enough in school, and I can still do the sports, then I can do
Yeah.
this, right?
Right.
And so I really had to just navigate
Yeah.
and find things out for myself,
Right.
right? And it's it was rough,
Yeah.
right? I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie, it was rough.
Mm-hmm.
It was rough because everybody else's parents
Yeah.
knew what
Yeah.
to
Right.
everybody really knew what to do, where to take
Right.
them, how to expose them, how to do
Yeah.
this, how to do
Yeah.
that. And you always feel like you're constantly climbing
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
but you never see the end.
Yeah.
It's like I'm trying to get to the ceiling, but where is the ceiling? I can't see
Yeah.
it. I
Right.
don't see
Right.
it,
Yeah.
right? So I have a choice. I can either continue to climb and
Mm-hmm.
hope that at some point I'm going to touch that ceiling,
Yeah.
right? Or just be like, no, forget this. I'm going to get down. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And so like those were the choices that you are presented with, right?
Right.
Um, and you know, and luckily, like, we were raised to have a strong mindset,
Right.
right? Was We're raised to adapt,
Yeah.
because throughout your entire childhood, it has
Yeah.
all been adaptation.
Right. Right. Right.
You were never given the choice to give up.
Right.
And not again, not in the vocabulary. Give
Right.
up was never part of a conversation, right? It was never like, oh, you don't like this? Yeah, yeah, you can leave it. No,
Yeah.
you're doing it.
Right.
Right? You're doing it. You may not necessarily know what the benefits are.
Mm-hmm.
It's there because I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you it's there,
Mm-hmm.
right? You may not see it now, but perhaps you'll see it
Yeah.
5, 10, 20 years, 30 years down the line, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so that's how, me and my brothers navigated through high school. You
Yeah.
know, SATs, I didn't know what an SAT was into my junior year.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Today, I mean, you and I both know kids start, taking SATs in 8th grade,
Yeah.
right? And just gotta take it multiple years.
Yep. Yep. Early preparation.
Early preparation. Didn't know what
Mm-hmm.
that was,
Yep.
right? And so going back to like not knowing what you don't know, right?
Right.
And so, our parents, my mother didn't know that,
Yeah.
right? But she did know that I needed to get a good education, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and so, it was interesting to just kind of go through that.
Yeah.
But through all of that, one of the things that that it taught me
Mm-hmm.
on is that I can do whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I had a lot of choices,
Yeah.
right? I could have gone like, I could have become a drug dealer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there was that open door, open avenue to just like to whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and somehow, in the back of my mind, it's always been like, well, no matter what you do, you make sure that you don't dishonor your mother.
Hmm. Hmm.
right? You cannot dishonor your mother,
Yeah.
right? And you have, in my case, I have two brothers
Yeah.
up to me.
Yeah.
Oh, no matter what I do, I have to make sure
Yeah.
that if I fail, I
Yeah.
fail so my brothers can succeed,
Yeah.
right? Wherever area I fail,
Yeah.
my brothers can succeed in that area.
Yeah.
And that whatever mistakes was, was whatever mistake that I made cannot be repeated by my
Hmm.
brothers ever.
Yeah.
You know?
So here's something, Pierre,
Yeah,
and this story, right? Your story is a beautiful story, man, and I'm gonna share something with you really quickly.
yeah,
So essentially, what you're saying is this: like there are a lot of things that your mom didn't know, and you guys had to learn on the fly. You had to adapt,
yeah,
right? But that
absolutely.
had been the story of your life, right?
Yeah,
From the time you were born until the time you came to America. That had been your story, right? You have to adapt, and sometimes you have to adapt on the fly. You don't have
yeah,
a whole lot of time to adjust. You have to adapt.
yes,
But here's the beautiful thing about this is that your mom was also adapting, right? Because your mom is essentially think of it this way, right? Let's say you have a school, it could be a high school, it could be a university, right?
yes, yeah,
And this happens all the time. They get the schedules are printed, they're ready for the semester, right? But then an emergency happens. Like one of the teachers, one of the professors has an emergency, they can't teach the class.
yeah.
So now they have to run and find someone to come and teach the class.
Hmm.
And usually the person they find at the last minute wasn't really thinking, they weren't in the headspace to come in here and teach this class. So now they have
Yeah,
to scramble and try to
yeah,
get up to speed. And they have to literally stay maybe a chapter or two chapters ahead of the class so
right.
that they can teach this class, right? So essentially, that's what your mom was doing, but also that's what you're doing because both you and your mom are canaries in the coal mine at the same time. So your mom is the parent going in this coal mine, which is America,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how is this going to be safe for my babies coming behind me.
Hmm.
But you're also the next canary going into other coal mines because, especially as a male in America, a black male in America,
Yeah,
there's just a different, there's different challenges that you have to navigate that your mom may not be aware of. So you also now being the oldest, you have to go through these coal mines. And like you said, the only way for your brothers to succeed is if you fail. And if you go through this coal mine and there's a lethal gas in here and you perish, well, at least your brothers know, hey, I can't go in that coal mine. So I
oh,
think
absolutely.
but as you're going through it, you don't realize this. This is just us looking back in hindsight what you're
Yeah,
going through,
yes,
But
yeah.
all this shapes you. And when we get to the third segment, which is going to talk about you as a parent and how all these stories have prepared you to be the type of parent that you are and that you're striving to be. But I'll let you pick it up from there.
Yeah, no, no, and no, and that's exactly right. But what what in the moment you don't realize that that's what your mother is doing, right? In the
Yeah.
moment, for me, it was always like, okay, my mother doesn't know this. She's telling me
Yeah.
she doesn't know this.
Yeah.
Right? She's been honest with me, right?
Hmm.
Some parents will lie to you. Some parents will
Hmm.
pretend that they know. My mother
Hmm.
said flat out, I don't know,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. And which went to like, end of high school,
Yeah.
for me.
And which is actually a sign of confidence, right? When you
Oh,
can say I
absolutely.
don't know, it's a
Yes.
sign of confidence,
Yes.
you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I learned so much from that, right?
Hmm.
That I carry with me now today,
Yeah.
presently, right?
Yeah.
I think that that shaped me in another way.
Absolutely.
Um, and so like I remember my mother's like, congratulations for me,
Hmm.
for graduating high school.
Yeah.
Um, I have no money,
Yeah.
okay, but I'm gonna need you to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I said, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you supposed to say?
Yeah.
It's like, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I need you to go to college.
Yeah.
I have no money,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna need you to figure it out,
Yeah.
right? And at the time, you're like, well, then,
Yeah. Thank you, Mom.
it's like, thanks for the honesty.
Yeah.
This really sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so and again, I appreciate the honesty,
Hmm.
that she's just like just blurred out,
Yeah.
and so but she did end up helping, right?
Mm-hmm.
In some, in some ways.
Yeah.
And I knew that I just needed one, I needed to get a job. Two, I need a scholarship because I can't,
Mm-hmm.
can't afford,
Yeah.
to school once I found out how much they cost, right?
Yeah.
Um, and and so like I spent like I took a semester off,
Yeah.
um, got a job, what I think it was called Hex. Yeah,
Yeah.
Hex.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So I worked at, I worked at Hex,
Yeah.
what's that? Taylor, something Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, anyways, and I was just staying in the back room and I was like I was like, okay, I need to make enough money so I can at least start going to school.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, hopefully I'm able to find somebody that would just, that would take me in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and so finally I came across a school, William Penn University.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach at the time have not seen my video.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wrote a letter.
Yeah.
I told him like, okay, I was part of the all-star team. I played for
Yeah.
high school, I played for this. And at the time, like
Yeah.
nobody was sending anybody video. I mean, if you had it,
Right.
as you were lucky
Yeah. Yeah.
to have a VHS to be able to send to
Yeah.
school. And so lo and behold, he said yes.
Yeah.
And up to Iowa, I was going.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So like New York, DC,
Yeah.
Iowa, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And talk about things shaping you. Iowa was its own eye opener.
Yeah.
Um, I was in a town called Oskaloosa, right?
Mm.
And with a population of like maybe 2,500 people.
Yeah.
The school was the school had more people than than
Yeah.
the town itself,
Yeah.
you know. Um, I had, like the school had people coming from Maryland. I
Yeah.
was like, okay, so I'm not alone,
Yeah.
somebody from the East Coast,
Yeah.
like myself,
Right. Right. Right.
and then
Right.
everybody else is like New Mexico, Texas,
Right.
Utah,
Yeah.
whatnot. And I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Um, and it's, like that this is the part of my life where I was just like, I make certain mistakes that I wish I had not made, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was okay. It was my first time that I was exposed to racism,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's my first time.
Yeah.
Where like somebody was like, go back to Africa. Okay,
Yeah.
we don't want you here. I
Yeah.
was, what? It's like, first of all, who says that? That's kind of ignorant. Like
Yeah.
you should at least get to know the country
Yeah.
that I'm from. I was like,
Yeah.
Africa is big,
Yeah. It's
massive,
massive.
right?
Yeah.
So for you to say go back to
Yeah.
which part of Africa would you like me to go to?
Yeah. Just anywhere.
Just, yeah, you know what I mean? But at the time, like, I think I was 19 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Somebody saying that to me was highly offensive,
Yeah.
right? And let's just say I didn't deal with it in a mature way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Deal with it in a mature way.
Yeah. Your response was not as
No, it's
mature and restrained as you would be
no,
today.
zero,
Yeah.
zero.
Yeah.
Okay,
And you understand why.
right.
Yeah.
And and even now, even now when I think about it, I was just like, well, I could have done that a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I could have sat him down and actually educate him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I could have.
Yeah.
Um,
Who has the time at that in 19?
exactly. But when I talk about like the mistake that I made, it was um it was to not go to Iowa in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
right? And but I was also chasing success.
Yeah.
I was chasing um I was trying to ensure that my mother was proud of me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And that I
Yeah.
didn't disappoint
Yeah.
with what I did.
Absolutely.
And but I also had I had people to, that would talk to me. And
Mm-hmm.
at the time, it was like I was in a space where I also wanted to get away.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get away because you're struggling, you're doing this, you're doing that. And by being a teenager where your parents like, my guy, don't do this, don't do
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
you're just like,
Yeah.
what all the teenagers do.
Yeah.
And so when I took that step and then I ended up, having to come back home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the racial stuff was getting to the point where I needed to leave, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't, but I was lucky that I recognized myself that
Yeah.
I should no longer be in that space.
Yeah. Yeah.
I removed myself, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but I I was in high school where I had a lot of opportunities, right? So like, first of all, like I was in Samatech, which is like
Mm-hmm.
it's called STEM now, but it was
Yeah.
science, math, technology then, right?
Yeah.
I was placed in a program where I was doing, pretty well. I was a
Yeah.
computer science major, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go and do computer science in college.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had an internship at Intelsat, which is right there
Mm-hmm.
by Van Ness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is like is still considered one of the biggest telecommunication, companies in the world today,
Right. Right. Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
And so so talk about mistakes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you know, I had it my old coach, Ozzy, was at youth
Mm-hmm.
at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And gave me the opportunity to come and practice with the men's team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sophomore year in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Sophomore year in high
Mm-hmm.
school.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that was given that opportunity to do that, right?
Right.
Play with
Yeah.
men, essentially,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sophomore year in high school. And so when the time came when I was about to, when I was graduating, he asked me to come and play.
Yeah.
And I said no,
Yeah.
right? I said no.
Yeah.
But part of me saying no was that all of my peers, right?
Yeah.
All 500, was graduating class of 500 people.
Mm-hmm.
Harvard, Yale, like
Yeah.
all of the schools that are considered prestigious schools, or whatever
Right.
and
Right.
stuff, they're going to,
Yep.
right? UGC at the time had the worst reputation,
Absolutely.
the worst reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, okay, I'm like, well, if I'm going to make my mother proud,
Yeah.
I can go to UGC where I may not get, my major may not get accredited,
Right.
right? Where what I mean? Like, just like
Yeah.
I can make a list of things, right?
Absolutely.
I shouldn't go to UGC.
Yeah. You made a business decision early,
I made a business decision at a very young age,
and you
which
had to.
and I had to,
Yeah.
so that's what I mean by like, when I think back on it, I was like, dude, just should have just go to the school. You just needed to get a degree,
Yeah.
right? It's like not knowing what you don't
Yeah.
know, right?
Absolutely.
Time
Yeah.
and time again,
Yeah.
And so that's been my life, where
Yeah.
I constantly climbing, constantly
Yeah.
just keep climbing and keep climbing, you
Yeah.
know. But I'm always like behind everybody else
Yeah.
because I always get the information late,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I was either getting information late, or like it just wasn't shared in a way that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense to me for me to
Yeah.
say, okay, put two and two together. Okay, this
Yeah.
is what it really is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a trust issue,
Yeah.
right? I don't know who to trust other than my
Yeah.
immediate family.
Yeah.
I didn't know who to trust, right?
Right.
So when you come and give me advice, it was always, what's your interest in this,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's always
Yeah.
a question mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a neighbor who I now call like, a sister of mine, who would sit me down, because she traveled the world, she,
Yeah.
and this and stuff, and we'll always have conversations, right? Um, and she has really supported me, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I went to school,
Yeah.
and allowed me to be able to support my brothers when they weren't,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like I'm like going.
No, man, it's a
So
great
if you,
it's a great story because what it is, it's a story about sacrifice. You know what I mean? And it's like your mom is sacrificing, you're sacrificing, and this is the story of family, right?
yeah,
And as you say, you don't know what you don't know, right? And it's not what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you believe to be true that
true.
just isn't so. That's what
Yes,
gets you in trouble,
yes.
right? And it's also a really good friend of mine told me a long time ago that you have to know what to ask for, right?
Mhm.
And so sometimes if you, especially as an immigrant coming to America, like we're doing this thing on the fly, we're learning as we go,
Yeah.
right? So when you're learning as you go, sometimes you don't know what to ask for, and that's
Mhm.
the whole reason why we're having these conversations is that so people
Yeah.
can tap in and see, okay. I recognize this theme. I had a similar experience,
Hmm.
and folks can connect with these stories. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you being so open, vulnerable, and honest about about your experience because ultimately it's going to help a kid coming here from Benin, maybe 10 years from now, who might see this and say, "Oh, okay, this is I recognize this." You know what I mean? I'm going through this, and the whole goal is for people to kind of see an alternative perspective and learn something and have a better understanding of how to navigate specifically the US education system, right? Because you're penalized for what you don't know, but you have to kind of humble yourself enough to know, okay, I need to ask. I need to try to figure things out. Because like you said, you were finding things out late. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
you're preparing for the SATs in 11th grade. Listen, some people are preparing for the SATs in the fourth grade, in the
Yeah.
fifth grade. You know what I mean? So by the time they get to the 11th grade and they take it one time, they can score a perfect score on there and pick whatever college they want to go to,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I think all these lessons are crucial. This is what I wanted to ask you, man.
Yeah.
So, Miss Fun at Lincoln, right? Ozzy, so you find these people who actually do come in, even though you had you talked about your trust issue there were people along the way who kind of stepped in. They were kind of like guardian angels who kind of stepped in and kind of, protected you and helped you along the way, right?
Absolutely.
And I've seen, knowing you, I've seen you do that for other people, right? And I feel as though the common theme is that, a lot of times people who go through a certain experience, they end up sort of being in the right position to help others come through that. And that's kind of what you did with your brothers, but I've seen you do that for thousands of other kids, and still work to try to do that. You know what I mean? So do you ever think about it, or you're just in the moment, just like this is what I have to do as especially as it pertains to youth, as it pertains to soccer and everything that you do and everything that you embody, but based on the experiences that you've had, like how do you make sense of all that?
I think for me it's like so first of all, like Miss Fun and Ozzy, I think about them all the time, right?
Hmm.
And Ozzy every once in a blue moon, I'll like, I'll call him just, to say hi, right?
Hmm.
But I'm on autopilot,
Hmm.
right? And so if I see someone, if I'm in a space where a child needs something, the first question is always like, the first thing is always, okay, we need to make sure we do right by this child.
Hmm.
Got to do right by this child, whether it's soccer
Hmm.
or education or whatever the case is. And doing right by that child means a lot of different things, right? Depending,
Hmm.
on the situation. So no, I don't think about it. I don't think
Hmm.
about it as much.
Yeah.
Um, I think as I'm getting older, I'm realizing more and more that, um, education is my calling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I am meant to educate
Yeah.
those that are not educated, right?
Yeah.
Help those that I can help. I'm not trying to be anybody's savior, right?
Right.
Because I never wanted somebody to be my savior
Yeah.
necessarily. I wanted somebody to guide me. I
Yeah.
wanted to be a facilitator, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that way I can continue my journey,
Hmm.
in whichever way I see fit, right?
Hmm.
And so so I'm constantly always aiming
Hmm.
that to be the as great of a facilitator as I can be, right?
Hmm.
To the child that's in front of me, right?
Hmm.
And to guide. as much as possible. So I don't know if
Hmm.
that answers your question.
No, no, it answers my question perfectly. And it brings me back to something you said earlier, right?
Mm,
You said you didn't want a savior,
yeah,
right? You prefer to have someone who guides and someone who helps to facilitate, which is also what you do, and I think which is also what you embody. Here's the thing that I thought about,
yeah,
and it's kind of spooky and far-fetched. But you spoke earlier about climbing this rope, trying to
yeah,
get to the ceiling,
yes,
right?
yeah,
And I think so for me, the irony is, they say, have you ever seen the experiment where they'll put flies in a bottle,
yeah,
right? And they
mhm,
can fly out of the bottle, right?
yeah,
But as soon as they put the top on the bottle,
yeah.
after a while, after they take the top off, they stop flying out of the bottle,
That's it.
right?
Yeah,
They stay in there, right? They limit themselves.
yeah,
So that analogy made me think of your analogy where you're talking about I'm always climbing to the ceiling,
yeah.
but there is no ceiling.
Feeling. Yeah,
And I think what that represents for you is that your potential is limitless,
yeah.
right? Because a ceiling actually represents like a stopping point.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So essentially, your life is like you said, we adapt. We just keep going. This is what we do, right? So there is no ceiling,
No.
right? So you're just gonna keep either you're gonna stop or you're just gonna keep going. And knowing you, I think you're probably
Just
one of the
stop
people I know who's
it.
unstoppable, right? You're never gonna stop, right? So let me ask you this.
Yeah,
Just so we're gonna move to the parenting side really quick, but just to wrap up on the professional piece. So
yeah,
based on those experiences, going back to fun and going back to Coach Ozzy
yeah.
and the work that you do, the work that you've done, like how have those experiences helped to shape and prepare you to be a good steward of the work that you do?
Oh,
Having those folks as mentors in a sense.
it's interesting because I bring those two people up, right?
Yeah.
But see, my profession today is
Hmm.
literally those two things, right?
Yeah.
This one
Yeah.
is a classroom teacher, right?
Hmm.
I'm also a full-time teacher, right?
Hmm.
Ozzy is a coach,
Hmm.
and so am I,
Yeah.
right? So, but no, I mean those two experiences shaped me in a massive way. Not even in a way that I wasn't looking for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about it. None of those things.
Hmm.
Because I remember when I came back from college because I didn't stay for too long. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, well, I'm bored. I can't just stay home,
Yeah.
and staying home again to my mother is like, what are you doing with yourself?
Right. Right.
So and so I need to answer that question, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't
Quickly.
asked.
Yeah.
It wasn't asked, but you want
Yeah.
to take care of that because
Yeah.
before
You know it's coming.
it's coming. You just don't know how long before how long before it comes, right? And so I was like, and so for me, I was like, okay, let me go and volunteer. That's what
Yeah.
people do, right?
Nice. Nice.
And I learned, okay, I need to go volunteer. So I
Hmm.
went to Parks and Recreation, and I was like, hey,
Hmm.
I'm a soccer player, can I volunteer to coach some 3 and 4 year olds?
Yeah.
Um, and I was at what is that school right behind Sidwell?
Hmm.
That
Hearst.
Hearst, yes.
Hmm.
So I was at Hearst.
Hmm.
I was at Hearst, and I was like doing, playing around with the kids, whatever. And then Len Oliver,
Hmm.
right? So Len
Hmm.
um, was um, was walking by.
Yeah.
Len was walking by. Um,
Hmm.
uh, Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Um, and he stopped me. He's like, "What's your name?" First of all, I was like, "Who's this guy? Who's this
Yeah.
guy trying to talk
Yeah.
to me? I
Yeah.
don't know you."
Yeah.
But okay, listen
Yeah.
to
I
this.
have trust issues, Len.
I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And so I told him,
Yeah.
and and he's like, "Oh, you play?" I was like, "Well, I was in college, but, yada yada
Yeah.
yada." And before he left, he's like, "Hey, listen, I've been watching you for a few minutes, and I think you'd be great at coaching."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What? I didn't know coaching was a thing."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like I said, what you don't know, you don't know. Uh,
Right.
I know coach was the thing. It's like I have a coach, I had a
Yeah.
coach, right? But I didn't
Yeah.
know you made it a profession, right? So
Right. Right. Right.
I so you know what I mean? So it goes to tell you how little I knew about Ozzy,
Mm-hmm.
what he did as a
Yeah.
for the for youth development program
Right.
and
Right.
college level,
Yeah.
right? Very little,
Yeah.
right? So I was like, okay. So when he left, I dismissed the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Just keep
Yeah.
working for you.
Yeah. Random guy.
Random guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what and whatnot. Um, and so then like literally, I think a week later, I was like, okay, let me look into this. We were getting close to the summer, right? Yeah, we're getting close to the summer. Um, and so okay, so I looked into it. I was like, okay, Parks and Recreation was doing like this summer program where they're
Mm-hmm.
hiring coaches or whatever and stuff. Uh, where my Mohan
Mm-hmm.
this time. And I go to this meeting, as young, 19, 20 years old,
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm just sitting there, I was like, this sounds very boring. This is boring as hell. Get me out of here.
Yeah.
And then I came across Mohan.
Yeah.
And so he and I started, speaking.
Yeah.
As so Mohan had already started coaching,
Yeah.
before I did. And so he was telling me about like, his passion and all this.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's just like very, very much into it.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that is quite amazing
Yeah. Yeah.
for one person to be this passionate
Yeah.
sport
Yeah.
that I love, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And this was foreign to you at the time. You're like
yeah,
this.
it's like,
Yeah.
but it's like I love it from a playing perspective. I want to
Yeah.
play,
Play.
not
Yeah.
coaching.
Coach.
I want
Yeah.
to play, right? And um, and so I was like, okay, all right. So after talking to him, I was hired by, a sports coordinator,
Yeah.
so who gave me a chance to like, to really just kind of get myself into,
Mm-hmm.
it. I worked at Hearst, uh,
Mm-hmm.
for a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and then summer was over.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, summer's over, so is the job.
Yeah.
And I need to look for something else, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so then that led me to, you know, um, coaching, coaching a team called the Mustangs,
Mm-hmm.
15 team, right?
Right.
As a rec team on
Yeah.
15. This is my first lesson as a
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah.
Never coach a team that's under 15 unless
Yeah.
you have them early.
Yeah.
That was that was my first lesson.
Yeah.
Just
You're learning on the fly, man. You're learning on the
because
fly.
because under 15, you've already made up your mind, right? And
Yeah.
you're a
Yeah.
wreck. So
Yeah.
if it's something I'm asking you to do, it's like, what are we talking about? I just want to
Yeah.
come to the ball and score some goals and go home. I
That's
don't care
it.
anybody else. That's it.
Yeah.
All what it is.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like until I was push it, push it, push it. And then one day I sat, I was like, this is crazy. What am I doing?
Yeah.
Oh, and it takes you back to like the first time you're coaching 3 and 4 year olds,
Yeah.
relationship we have with a 3 and 4 year old and 15-year-olds,
Yeah.
right? Massive difference.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, you know, so so those things, it's just like slowly shaped me into being a
Yeah.
coach, being given an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And from that, it was like, okay, I was doing computer science before,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I wasn't going to school, right?
Yeah.
And I needed to do something, right?
Yeah.
And sure, like I could have gone back to Intelsat, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I felt like I was away for too long to try to go
Yeah.
back and
Yeah.
have a relationship. I didn't even know how to go about entering the building
Yeah.
if I want, if I wanted to, you
Right.
know. Um, and so then I was, I was looking for after school stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I ended up at Pierre Hedji Public Charter School,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and I got into education from there. So
Yeah.
from that moment, right, from that moment of entering Pierre Hedji, it was okay. You're not doing computer science anymore. You're in education.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing, fairly well. So I
Yeah.
was given an opportunity to be, a health educator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I was brave enough to say, well, if we're going to do health, can we do, if we go to the physical education, can we do both physical education and health education, right?
Yep. Yep.
Intertwine the two because they're really
Yep.
important, right?
Absolutely.
Um, and so from there, I just didn't look back.
Yeah.
You know? Like I
Yeah.
still love computers today,
Yeah.
or up until today. I
Yeah.
love technology and everything.
Yeah.
But my journey
Mm-hmm.
took me back to the two people that, that I can say
Yeah.
there for me in at times where I didn't think I needed, right? I
Yeah.
needed help, right?
Yeah. Or the times when you actually needed help, you
Right.
know?
Yes.
Yeah, because if not for Miss Fun, you wouldn't be able to find the bathroom,
No, I wouldn't.
you
Yeah,
know?
no, I wouldn't.
But
Absolutely
here's the thing, Pierre. I
not.
think I think I think it's beautiful how you tied these things together. You talk about volunteering, you talk about, your early love for computer science and kind of how you pivoted into like health education, coaching, and these things happen, right?
Yeah,
So I think volunteering is crucial because this is something that people take for granted. They may not think about it, right? Because this is one way to kind of expose yourself to another option that you may not have previously considered. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because you weren't looking at coaching as a possibility. You were just like, all right, let me get out the house and make sure that I'm working and doing something.
right,
And then, through the voluntary opportunity, that kicked down some other doors that you were
right,
open to. And it also kind of blended well with your skill set and your interests.
right.
Right. So
Yeah,
let's go to the final P, which is as a parent, right? You're a proud papa. With all these experiences that you've had, man, like how do you, in a sense, you were kind of, prepared for being a dad, having two younger brothers, having, a lot of responsibility thrusted upon your shoulders at an early age. You know what I mean? So you started preparing to be a dad when you look back very early. You know what I mean? And then
yeah.
all your experiences that you've had and the challenges that you've overcome, the people that you've met along the way. Like, talk to us about how that has shaped you into being the dad that you are and the dad that you aspire to be.
Man, um, I mean, as a father yourself,
Hmm.
it's a journey, right? But I think that one of the things that I've taken so many examples from my mother, right? And because those examples have shaped me, right,
Hmm.
into who I am. I then want to take that and pass it along to my kids,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and then add some more, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
uh, but my first priority has always been be intentional,
Hmm.
right? Be intentional about every single thing. I love my kids dearly,
Yeah,
and and I'm always, like I think I use the example of my mother being straightforward,
yeah,
right? I am very straightforward about children.
yes, yes.
Um,
I think anyone who knows you will definitely say that. You don't beat around the bush. Let's get straight to it.
and the part of being is straightforward, but being intentional
Hmm.
is explaining to my children that what I'm going to say is going to be hurtful,
Hmm.
but this is why I'm saying it,
Hmm.
right? I think when me and my brothers were younger, our parents, my mother, so particularly we use proverbs, right?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like
Yeah,
it's like like people do Sudoku, we had to
yeah,
proverbs,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
right?
Fill in the blank.
Right, so it was like so you get a proverb,
Hmm.
and then like you're like trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And
It's a riddle.
it's a riddle constantly. You're
Yeah,
constantly getting a riddle.
yeah.
Uh, but I think the difference now is that I still give the riddle. The only
Hmm.
difference is that I will explain the riddle.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right?
You provide some context with the
So
content.
good. Yes, exactly. And, You know, exactly. And
This is the evolution of parenting, man. You know?
I was like, no, 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 I can't do that to these guys.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, like, I remember the struggle of like having
yeah,
to try to figure out a
yeah,
program for 2 weeks straight, and my mom
yeah,
refused to talk to me about it.
yeah. We're not gonna
And I
break
just
this
had to
down.
figure
Figure it out.
right, and
Stumble
I
through
just
it.
had to figure it out.
Yeah,
And as much as I appreciate, I
yeah,
appreciate. I was like, dude, seriously, we could have saved
yeah,
ourselves so many weeks of
yeah, yeah,
if you just explain to me that I messed up. This is
yeah,
how I messed up. And in
yeah,
life, when you mess up like this is
yeah,
what's gonna happen to you, right?
yeah,
Being intentional is one of the approaches that I try to, that I try to take. And
yeah,
I have a wonderful partner, right,
yeah,
who is like constantly on the same page
yeah, yeah,
with me, right?
yeah.
And every single step of the way, we're always sitting down. And even though we may have our own views, right,
Mm-hmm.
we always make sure that we come to an understanding before we start speaking to our
Mm-hmm.
to our children,
Right,
right?
right.
Um, you know, and and like there are privileges that I have now
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't have when I was younger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and me and my partner, right? The
Yeah,
privilege we both have now that we didn't have
yeah.
before. And so we always think about how do we make sure that just because we have privileges now,
Mm-hmm.
that our children, right, do not
Mm-hmm.
also get too comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because I believe that being too comfortable makes you lazy.
yeah, yeah.
Right? So we want to make sure that the things that we provide for them, that they understand that it takes hard work to get these things, and that
Right.
it's not it's not just it's not just being provided to you.
Mm-hmm.
Not just being handed to you. It's coming from
Right.
somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And that it's in my case, it's not Santa
Mm-hmm.
Claus that's giving it to you, right?
Right, right.
So, right, but it's mom and dad that are actually intentionally working, making sure
Yeah,
that, and always make sure that they're there, right?
yeah,
You go to the dentist appointment, this, that, and the other, right?
yeah.
And so like the fair word that I like to use is being intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Intentional
Mm-hmm.
as a parent,
Yeah.
right? Um, because I think that although I navigated my way through the system,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been nice to
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
right? To know the system ahead of time. And
Absolutely.
now that I know the system now,
Yeah.
there is no way I'm letting my child go through the system and
Yes.
having to climb. They will both climb
Yeah.
different ways,
Yeah.
but not the way I climb, right?
Got you.
I would never expect them to climb the way I climb because
Yeah.
I was different,
Yeah.
right? I was different. My parents are different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, but I do know that they are going to climb themselves, right?
Yeah.
And that whatever I was given in terms of
Yeah.
confidence, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever, how my mother shaped me to
Yeah.
give me that confidence, I'm
Yeah.
constantly, we are constantly intentional in making sure that our children are growing up, right?
Yeah.
Understanding what those intentions are.
Yeah.
And they're growing up knowing that
Yeah.
everything they do, right? They can do it in any way they want.
Yeah.
And there are no limitations.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
limitations. Unless they put
Mm-hmm.
that up on themselves. And even
Yeah.
and when we find out that that's what they're doing, that immediately we make sure that that we sit down. We're like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
No, this is not how you're raised.
Yeah.
And you are worth much more than this. You can do
Yeah.
much more than this. So don't limit yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a perfect recalibration at that moment, man. So let me say this to you. I think your story, man, when I listen to you, there's a lot of sacrifice in there, right? So going back to what you said about not wanting someone to save you, but you wanted someone to guide you and to be a facilitator. And you've done that with your life, right? And then also as a parent, right? That's what you're doing as a parent. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Essentially. So it's like when you look back, and again, it's hard to see it in the moment, but
Yes.
looking back, you're seeing like how all these things prepared you for the person that you are and the person that you're, the best version of you that you're trying to ascend to every day.
Yeah.
And so that's a beautiful journey, man. So I really appreciate you sharing, taking the time to share your story with me. I mean, I knew you, but I feel like I know you, way better now. Um, and I feel like this is the point of this again, is to provide context for people, right? To give them information, but also provide the context so that they have a better understanding of how to navigate, life in America, especially as parents, right? And as parents who have young children, we want to be able to give them just some different point of views to, of different versions of the same immigrant story that a lot of us share. You know what I mean? There's more commonality in between our stories, no matter where we come from. And that's the
Absolutely.
point, that's the point of these conversations, man, is to just, we didn't have a YouTube, but I didn't have a YouTube when I was, when I was a teenager, where I can go and just search and see, hey, tell me a story about, someone
Right.
who traveled from here and went to Jackson Reed, you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
like that didn't exist, right? So now we're trying to provide some of that information, man. So again, thank you, Pierre. I really appreciate it.
Oh no, my
Let folks
pleasure.
know how we can get in touch with you, man. I know I didn't give the full bio
Yeah,
about
yeah.
everything that you've done, man. I know you're doing a lot of work. You founded Juan. You're part of DC 11. So, give us some info on that front
Um,
of what you're
I mean,
doing.
today I teach at a public charter school.
Mm-hmm.
I co-founded DC 11 football
Mm-hmm.
club with a whole bunch of wonderful partners.
Nice.
And and then, again, when we're talking about like not having limitations, right? Like, who knew that today, I'll be where I am, right?
Yeah.
But it's not limiting myself that
Yeah.
allowed me to be
Yeah.
here right
Yeah.
now. And like, again, back to like the teaching and all those things and giving opportunities.
Yeah.
Now, I'm in a position where I can provide somebody else an
Yeah.
opportunity,
Yeah,
right?
man.
And and then show them that there's so many different routes that they can take.
Yeah.
So yeah. So if anybody's looking for me, they can look me up
Yeah.
on 11 Football Club, and they'll find and they'll easily be able to find me.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Pierre. And thank you for all the work that you've done, man. You helped my son
Thank
out
you for this.
tremendously.
This is fun.
My daughter's fond of you. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. It's
All
good to
right,
see.
man.
All right.
Same here. Take it easy.
All right.